Hey guys. I let the timer run for approximately a minute on my end there. Sorry for taking a moment and for kind of springing that on you guys. It's important to kind of impress, given the incredible variety of problems that we're dealing with right now on this particular topic, just how long this list actually is. The one that I'm posting came off of a blog that said it went back to about 2004. And these are just POCs who have lost their lives. The list, it looks like, ends a little bit before some of the recent protests. Mm-hmm. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, but this size of it should give you an idea of the problem. Yeah,
we can't keep up anymore.
I was searching for a list online to be able to make my own, and I could not find one. There were just too many. Also, Nervardia, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Wait, you're monetized. There was one before the stream started from Carbuckle that said message retracted. So thank you for the super chat. Tonight's going to be a pretty serious one. We're going to be talking about a range of topics on the subject of justice, and thankfully, Jen is far more of an expert on this stuff than I am.
Sadly.
You understand constitutional law well enough to explain things when I get them wrong. So expect a lot of corrections.
Local laws. I'm actually pretty good at many local criminal laws, criminal law procedures and interpretations as well. So
we're going to be keeping that list in the background for the whole show. I know it's not typical for the show, but I think it's important. And probably midway through the show, we might pop into the background for new folks to get to see the list that weren't here right when we started. So, starting off, names that probably should be on this list, but nobody's keeping track of them, are the hundreds of thousands of lives that have been lost to COVID-19 as of late, which the Cheeto-in-Chief was just diagnosed positive with.
The disproportionate amount of Black lives that were lost.
No, people of color in general. We've watched it ravage. Like, we saw states literally try to stop reservations from letting people in without screenings. Like, they literally, I think wasn't Ohio? I'd have to look it up, but like it was Ohio and like one other
Dakota. It was either Ohio or North Dakota.
Let's just say yes, because I could see either of them doing that. Like, if somebody wants to find a citation on that, there was a state that literally tried to stop a reservation from having COVID screenings, which COVID screenings are standard for even going into your dang doctor's office. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much to the Wood Carving Druid for the super sticker.
A bit more why POCs most likely, because there's no definitive reason, because SARS-CoV-2 is just so new. But there are some mitigating factors at play where a lot of us could say, well, we're not surprised.
Well, like, for example, I pass as white in my state. I was heavily monitored because I happen to be barely middle class in my state. I'd be upper middle class, literally anybody else on earth. When I start talking about finances, people are like, y'all make so much fucking money. And then I'm sitting here going, my house costs less than a 2-bedroom apartment in my area because we bought it 10 years ago. Like, I legit am lucky because of circumstance, but in like pretty much any other state, the amount of money we make would be more than just barely middle class. But I had an entire team of people, like including a nurse that called me every day because I was a high risk patient. The vast majority of people, like especially if you're going to a clinic that takes some of the lower tier insurance, which mine does not. The hospital that I go to is private, and they only take certain tiers of insurance, mostly from Boeing, which Boeing has excellent insurance because it's a union job, another reason to support unions. The vast majority of people would not have gotten the steroids that I got right off the bat because they had a history of pneumonia. They wouldn't have been monitored by a disease specialist. The vast majority of people couldn't even get tested. Like, the only reason I did is because my husband works at a company that it was very heavily publicized, had cases, and he came home with the symptoms 2 weeks freaking later. So we were able to get a test. Most people had to fight
for mine. I was a bit early. I wasn't early on. I was, I guess, what we would call mid-range at this point, where I started to display symptoms. And I was told, because I wasn't running a fever, I was told the very same thing that Ariana was told, was to stay home. And if a fever develops, come in. And I live with a medically fragile person. And I'm screaming and screaming and screaming. And I said, fuck that. I just went. I was like, what are you going to do? Turn me away at the fucking door? And the way this started, this is a funny fucking story. I want to say it was May. My son got a brand new pair of Star Wars pajamas, and he was just,
Hey, celery.
hey, Sal, he was just so fucking happy about it. And it was one of those nights where I was up at 1:30 in the morning cleaning the bathroom. And he comes downstairs and he's crying his eyes out.
Hey,
And
Russ.
through the tears, I thought he was saying, my nose is bleeding. So I go to check his nose, and like there's no blood or anything. And I was like, did you scratch it too hard? He goes, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, can I get another button? Okay. What do you mean? Shows me the buttons missing on his, they were button up PJs. And I said, okay, Bug, where is it? In your bed? He goes, no, it's in my nose.
Well, shit.
Well, fuck. And I was like, I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. So I'm looking, I don't see it up there. And then it was quiet, and I heard him breathe, and I can hear the air going through the holes in the button. And I can't see it. Fuck, all right. So we call an ambulance. The ambulance can't get it out. So now I gotta go to the fucking ER. So we get to the ER. The only person wearing a mask was the doctor. In my kid's face. In my face. And in order to walk out of the doctor's office, you had to walk through the area they were screening COVID patients in. And I'm looking at him like, you better not touch a fucking thing. Don't you fucking touch anything. So we get out. And about a week later, I started getting headaches. I was coughing a lot. Just extremely tired, body aches.
I remember that. You
Yeah.
like called me up and you were like, so how do I know if it's COVID versus just a normal cold? And I'm like, can you taste things? Does everything just taste like you were on the Black Pearl and picked up a coin? Because if it does,
and I'm like, you're asking
then
me this as I just shot steaming hot coffee down my throat. So right now,
I'm like, could you taste
not.
the bitterness? Could you taste the bitterness in the coffee? Because if you could, then you probably don't have it.
And
like
you know,
everything tasted like ashes.
I started worrying about my mom, and I had a fight, and I just showed up, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do. I'm here. So do the fucking thing.
Apologies, by the way, if you guys hear either very loud squeaking because Mama decides to feed her babies or like helicopter blades. There have been helicopters circling my neighborhood all day, and I have no idea why. We theorize that somebody might have escaped from a nearby prison, but we're not sure.
We've got guys deploying out of here, and for some reason, like, I'm convinced Tennessee, the rich in Tennessee, know shit is bad because we have a private. It's not private; it's a smaller airport, but we've had a lot of private planes flying out lately, out of here.
So
I think they fucking know shit is bad, and these motherfuckers are getting out. They're like, nope.
So that brings us to the news of the day, which is that the Cheeto-in-Chief has been diagnosed positive and was in the hospital for a couple of days after having exposed potentially an entire rally and everybody in the Oval Office, and like defiantly took his mask off after arriving back at the White House, even though he's gotten at least his wife, if not a good chunk of his family infected. We don't know how many people have it yet, but Hope Hicks does.
Hope Hicks does. I didn't hear anything about Barron having it, but I'm wondering if because it's the school year, they actually have him back at his boarding school.
We don't know about Pence either yet. Pence initially tested negative, but he could have gotten it at any point.
Well, and here's the thing, and here's
and
something
it can
that
take
a lot
up to
of
2
people,
weeks to test positive.
Here's something that a lot of people don't take into account. Just on safety reasons alone, the president and the vice president travel separately. They stay separately. When there's a high-profile event that they have to appear at, they are housed separately. They are traveled separately, and usually, really, the only time they see each other is during the appearance, because it's such a high-risk security threat. Wiping out 2 members of a party like that at once is a high-value target. So it wouldn't surprise me if Pence does come up negative because of the extreme measures taken to keep them separate as they travel. and I think it
Yeah,
could
but
benefit.
traveling and stuff isn't the only time he could have contracted it, and also
True.
Pence does meet with a lot of the officials that Trump meets without masks.
I
So,
you want to laugh though? I don't see Pence being that stupid. I
I
don't.
mean, I've watched a lot of Trump's lackeys like take their masks off and not wear masks at public events and stuff in solidarity with him because that seems to be how fascistic the
Titan.
Republican Party is getting.
I want to address Titan. I'm referencing when they travel, not when they're at the White House. I'm referencing when they travel, and it seems to be that a lot of the cases are coming up due from being super spreader events at appearances at events and at travel. Most notably, Hope Hicks on Air Force One. So when they do travel, they are kept very separate because it's a national security risk. From what I have seen from just looking at Pence, he tends to stay 6 feet apart when he can. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen him wear a mask, but like, Pence is a lot fucking smarter than Trump is. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah, and this is a good point from Heracles. Ivanka and
Mm-hmm.
Don Jr. have so far tested negative. Pence tested negative, but it may manifest later as it did
It
with the
may manifest later,
spokesperson.
but I don't see
Several
Pence
people
being
in the
that
press
stupid.
corps Well, several people in the press corps at the debate tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it was,
Mm-hmm.
which here's the thing. Here's the thing about these micro droplets. People think, oh, well, it's only like within 6 feet, etc. Social distancing has been shown to be less and less effective because of micro droplets. Trump being infected means that those micro droplets, which can stay suspended in the air for up to 20 hours,
Right.
spread through that entire freaking room. And he was let in on the honor system. Like his test hadn't come back yet. So everybody in that room that was not wearing a mask, because there was an infographic I saw a while ago
Mm.
that showed that if you're wearing a mask and the person with the infection is not, you've got a 15% chance of catching it anyway.
Can we
Um,
just address Cell real quick?
sure.
Um, with Barron Trump. So while Trump doesn't seem like he's a really good parent, this is one concession that I'll give Melania. Melania is actually a very hands-on parent. She's very involved with her son. They're very close. And while he may get sent to boarding school when the child is home, she really, I mean, they've got nannies and shit, but she gives a shit about that kid. Like she takes charge. She's involved with it. She's known for being involved with Barron. Also, I will give her that much. She's absolutely well known for being hands on with him as much as she can be, and being really invested and really empathetic towards her son.
Mm.
That's the one thing I'll give her. She seems like a halfway decent mother. I'll give her that.
Well, and away from personal stuff about the family, here's one gripe that I do have. Everybody knows that Trump got out of the hospital today and decided to put out probably the most insensitive tweet I've ever seen and a sort of press conference video, which I'll let you talk a little bit about, Jen, because you got to see. It sounded like either the whole thing or a lot more of it than I did.
I saw the press release video, and there I saw a couple of clips of him entering not the rose garden, the balcony that he was on.
Mm-hmm.
The thing. There's so many fucking areas of the White House. There's no fucking way. I don't even remember all the areas of my own fucking house, and I'm like, no, fuck off. No, no.
Well, the tweet that he put out, which pissed me the ever loving fuck off because
Which
I
one?
got
He
it.
tweeted like 85 in the last 24 hours.
Okay, so the one that pissed me the fuck off particularly was don't let COVID 19 rule your life. It's not as bad as I thought it was. And I'm sitting here as somebody who got it going. Me and my husband were both hospitalized for this. My husband
Um,
had a fever over
I don't think that's
104 for
truthful.
over a fucking week.
I don't think that's truthful from him.
I don't either. Like, if that press release has anything to go by, which I've only seen clips, but like, he looked like
Um,
he had just gotten back from fucking hell.
so and anyone that knows me will tell you, I read people exceptionally well. I read nonverbal cues exceptionally well. I read a person's body mannerisms and body language exceptionally well. Excuse me. And that came from growing up in New York City and having to tone shift and adapt and figure out your environment. When he was at Walter Reed, I could tell he didn't have the heavy duty foundation on, but I can also tell with the way that his skin was sagging, he was depleted of oxygen. The way his wrists were falling limp. So he wasn't looking good at Walter Reed to begin with. when he came
It looked
out,
like they gave him steroids too. Like
yes,
which they gave me those right off the bat because
I am noticing the steroid swelling over here in the face.
mm-hmm.
He's definitely swollen a bit more in the jowls than usual, and it's not the typical Trump swollen where it's like he's probably
He's been
hasn't
on
worked
some
out.
kind of something.
Yeah, it's not like, this isn't that he probably hasn't worked out a day in, 35 years, but it's
Okay,
there's
probably he literally believes that if he works out, it's going to shorten his life. You know he hasn't.
so yeah. But it's almost like it almost looks like water retention a bit.
Which
And
steroids can definitely
which
do.
steroids do.
We do have confirmation that he's on 2 different antivirals. But
He's
the
on
thing is,
remdesivir. He was treated with remdesivir.
yeah, and he's still on one of them. There was another one that was like dextrose something, but he was put
I
on
can't remember the
there.
name.
His
Yeah.
doctor in a press release said that he was on 2 different antivirals. But I'm like staking shit on him being on steroids because he wouldn't.
If he's not still, he at least was. Because I'm noticing the swell in the face with that. I'm noticing the swell in the hands a bit with the steroid medication. He
But
came
also the
out.
slight tick too, which
He
the
has
slight
always had that.
shakiness you get from that.
He's always had it.
He's had that, but it
Always
was
had it.
worse.
He's
It was
always
worse.
I think the tick is due to lack of oxygen.
Hmm.
I think it's more lack of oxygen. He came out and he gave a very. I'll get into that. Actually, I'm going to be doing a video this week on what happens if that happens and the process of that and what we're facing. So that will be out Thursday. So
Yeah, I think Legal just covered it too as well. Like he talked about the difficulty with figuring out what happens specifically with the presidential candidates
it's not
because
that difficult. It's actually not that difficult. It's
like
really not that difficult.
yeah, because apparently, like the president, if the president himself dies, there's actually a line of succession that's pretty clearly spelled out. But
No. If the president dies in office, yes, there's a line of succession written out in the 25th Amendment. However, there's not a line of succession with the RNC as far as the nominee. So I will be covering that Thursday night, and
that's exciting.
I will be getting into the most likely option, why this person is the most likely option, what it means for the future of the Republican Party, and how our lives would change should this happen. So, and it will, without giving too much away, the path that I can see the RNC leading, if we think it's bad now, this is a fucking dress rehearsal. Mm-hmm. This is a dress rehearsal for women. This is a dress rehearsal for the LGBTQIA community.
Thank you, Titan. Dexamethasone, steroidal anti-inflammatory.
I wanted to say dextromorphin, but I'm like, I know it's not that.
So yeah, I was put on something similar. I want to say, like for my lungs because I had a history of pneumonia and was already having breathing problems by the time they caught
John Fallon real quick? Can you hit John Fallon's? Yeah. So it's not a spray tan. It's not a spray tan. If it was a spray tan, he would have retained the same color at Walter Reed. What his issue is, and I was so guilty of this for so many years, it's a mismatched foundation. They're putting on a warmer base to him, and he's actually more neutral. So it's making him look orange. It's an orange base and an orange tone in the foundation and the face powder that they're putting on him. And you can tell because when you get a spray tan done, I've had spray tans. When you get a spray tan done, you close your eyes and they will tan the lids of your eyes. You can see the whiteness like just under the brow where they couldn't hit it. And then you can see the whiteness up by the hairline. So it's not a spray tan. He's actually just, who's ever doing his makeup is horrifically mismatching his foundation and his face powder. And this is something that literally every white person on the planet who wears foundation and powder needs to watch for. Because this could very easily happen. All it is mismatched.
I mean, even makeup. If you're, okay, let's face it, especially even more so if you're POC, because, like, it is nearly fucking impossible to find decent shades.
POCs run the risk of being too light.
Mm-hmm.
White people run the risk of being orange when you don't match your base correctly. And I was guilty of this for years. I was guilty. I was using this super cheap fucking CoverGirl face powder. And one day I remember I was sitting in the car with my ex-husband, right? And my head tied back. And I looked, and like my scalp line was white, but my fucking face was a totally different color. And I was like, who's been letting me walk out of the house looking like this? Like, what in the ever loving fuck? Why are y'all doing this to me? Why? Why? It's legitimately just bad mismatched foundation and powder.
So,
Hercles. Yes. No, Hercles. It actually does not complicate things very much at all. And
so,
I'll get into that. So he
so,
walks out. He walks out, and he's looking at the camera, and it looks like a really bad green screen. It was
mm-hmm.
like the first thing I was like, is this a fucking hologram? Was the first thing I thought, because it was just weird. He looked weird. And but I'm noticing as he's talking, he's not doing this. Like, he's not taking deep breaths in. They're very shallow breaths, and that he's trying to catch his breath between words. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. And it looked edited. It looked edited. It was good editing, but it looked edited. The shots that they got of him coming out to the balcony, he's and then he went to take a deep breath in, and he physically winced. He went. So he can't breathe right now.
Well,
Like
yeah, and I
he's
can say
having
from
a hard
personal
time
experience,
breathing.
it probably hurts like fuck. Like that shit, the viral pneumonia is no joke. Some of you might have had the flu and been given antibiotics for like bacterial pneumonia, because usually the way most people get pneumonia, for those of you who don't know, especially if you've got asthma like me, so your freaking little
My sister
bronchi
has
don't
it.
work the
Yeah,
way they're supposed to.
my sister has it.
The way that most of us get pneumonia is that the virus weakens our immune systems such that the damage that's done to your lungs makes it easier for bacteria that already live there. Like, right, the vast majority of these bacteria are just endemic in the air. They live in your body. The majority of the cells in your body, like, are not yours, by the way. Like, the vast majority of what's in your body does not belong to you. This is just a fact. But sometimes your microbiota, because your immune system gets weakened and because your lungs get damaged, will then get into the I think they're called aoli.
Aorta.
Um, yeah, the
Not to be
little
confused with areolas. Different part of the
no.
body, people.
They'll get into like basically the little sacs in your like in your lungs.
Mhm.
And so what that infection does is then, the bacteria cause mass amounts of like pus and other liquids and stuff to fill your lungs up, and most of it's phlegm. But as your body tries to fight it, they're attacking your tissues as well and filling up your lungs with fluid, and you start to kind of drown in your own fluids.
But then
That's
think
why you
about
have to
what
get
happens.
antibiotics for pneumonia. But
What
like,
happens with bacteria when it's placed in water?
it grows faster. But here's what's scary though. Like for that, they're antibiotics. Like there are antibiotic resistant strains, obviously, but they're antibiotics for the most part that if you don't abuse the ever loving fuck out of them, and people in your area don't either, you'll probably be fine if you get bacterial pneumonia if you're not in a super high risk category.
Right.
It'll suck for a couple of weeks. You might get a little bit of lung damage. You'll be fine. Viral pneumonia is a whole other animal. Viral pneumonia is when the infection that would normally weaken your immune system does the damage itself
Mm-hmm.
to your.
It's yeah.
And that's what COVID-19 does. COVID-19 attacks the ACE2 receptor. It does damage the alveoli. Thank you, Ariana.
Yes. Thank you.
Alveoli, like it does the damage directly to the alveoli themselves. And I can tell you from personal experience, it hurts to breathe. Like they say that it's a dry cough. I actually had a full blown like wet pneumonia infection. It was nasty. I have lost about 15% of my lung capacity from COVID. Like Jimmy Snow on his channel has been talking about his long term effects. I have lost a lot of hair, like because of mine. I've been dealing with that for a long time. The shock to my body was such that we still haven't figured out all of the different tissues that were damaged, but my thyroid got worse. My like lungs have gotten worse. I have had a hard time exercising for quite some time because my lung capacity is so reduced and because there's scar tissue on the insides of my lungs.
Yeah.
Like when they say that shit looks like stained glass, I saw my own scans. That
But,
it's terrifying.
COVID also creates permanent damage to your heart, to your kidneys, to your liver.
If it gets into them, yeah.
This is some shit we ain't never seen before. This is shit that is attacking your brain, Your
It attacks
body,
every cell in
it
your
attacks
body.
everything. And this is what makes it so terrifying, is that there isn't a safe organ. And I believe now they are conducting studies about how it attacks your intestines, how it actually
Hmm.
attacks your large intestine. And this shit is irreversible. And
You can get nerve damage
I
from it too.
yeah.
It's like, and it actually, here's the scary part. You want to know how the clots can form, is it actually can cause your body to have a cytokine storm because it can infect your freaking white blood cells just like HIV. It doesn't
So
prefer to the way that
excuse me.
HIV does, but it can,
But if
and
it's
then your
got
white
nowhere to
blood
go,
cells
that's
start
where it's gonna
attacking each
go.
other.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I worked with a lot of the guys down at the 9/11 site who did recovery, and we were breathing in asbestos, and we were breathing in a lot of shit we shouldn't have been. Every day for 10 years after, I had to get lung taps done to check the fluid in my lungs. I had to get X-rays done to make sure that there was no scar tissue in my lung, because while we survived that, a lot of us weren't surviving the lung damage. They called it black lung. A lot of us weren't surviving that, and Lord help me. And
So
I'm starting to see very similar symptoms and very similar side effects. And when I fucking tell you guys, watching somebody die like that, and we're still losing guys. We're still losing guys 20 years later. Watching somebody die like that, gasping like that, like
so
this
I'll
this
I'll say one last thing as somebody who has had it. I've had pneumonia on and off my entire fucking life. Like Jen and I talked about this actually when I got infected with this stuff, because that's close to when she met me,
Mhm,
actually, was when I got sick.
mhm.
This
Excuse
shit
me.
is the most terrifying thing I've ever had in my life. I had fizzing pain through my entire body that would torture me at night to the point where I would wake up sobbing and my partners would have to get me medication in order to function well enough to go back at night. Like my partners had to hold me through sobbing. I had pain that concentrated in my legs so badly we thought I had clots. I could
Mm.
not breathe. I took steroids and could still barely breathe. And normally they don't give you steroids for viral infections because it can dampen your immune
No,
system.
but they have to open your airways.
Yep. If you're gonna have a hard time breathing, they gave them to me preemptively because they knew I was gonna get pneumonia.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
knew I
they
was
have to
gonna
open
get
up your airways,
pneumonia.
and that's why when I had seen Trump's care plan, I was like, "Holy fuck, he's really sick. Like he's
Yeah.
really fucking sick." To be administered remdesivir and steroids 4 days in.
I'm sorry for your loss, cartoon
Cartoon, I'm
contrarian.
sorry. I've lost 7 people now to it. 7. Last one was last month.
If my mom gets it, she's gonna die.
I
She has
I
worse asthma
understand.
than I do.
Cartoon, I understand, and I'm sorry. I to think about to think about losing somebody that way, and to have lost somebody that way, and it's scary in the sense because know. You don't know how this is going to happen. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know. You just don't. You don't know if it's going to fill your lungs. You don't know if it's going to attack your liver. You don't know. And it's painful. And there's not a lot of dignity, excuse me, at the end of that. So to deal with somebody dying of this, and I've had people be like, well, they died of a natural cause, which is, technically true. But, we think of natural causes like cancer in your sleep or a heart attack or something like that. And this is slow, it's suffocating, and at the end you don't have a lot of dignity at the end of it. Cartoon, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Coming from someone who has lost people they cared about that way, I'm sorry. This isn't shit to
Well,
joke around with. And we got a man
who has been undermining the
who's been
treatment
undermining, and then
and the
slap.
authority.
The slap in the face is they all rally against universal care, and they all rally against the Affordable Care Act. But the moment any sign of anything is wrong, they're literally utilizing the same systems that they're cutting money from. They're granted they don't call it Medicare, but that's what it
They
is.
have a separate system for like
It's
government officials, don't they?
it's similar to TRICARE. I government officials aren't on TRICARE itself. I can't remember the name of it, but they're not on TRICARE itself. TRICARE is the military insurance, which, oh my god, it's such shit, dude. Like, everyone's like, oh, free healthcare. No, fuck off. TRICARE sucks. TRICARE is shit. All right, y'all.
From what I heard, the government officials get way better healthcare than
They
the
do.
military
It's kind
does.
of like the Cadillac of TRICARE, but these programs that they're trying to cut, and they're trying to cut Medicare, and TRICARE for military has two separate plans. You have TRICARE Prime, which everything is covered under, and then you have TRICARE Standard. Now, TRICARE Prime, even though everything is covered, you can only see doctors on a military base or within a certain radius of where you're from or where you're living. TRICARE Standard is much more like the insurance the rest of us knows, to where you pay copays and stuff like that, but you have a wider selection of doctors and specialists to see. Um, Theirs is like TRICARE Prime Cadillac, but it's still government funded. Thank you, Sal. It's still government funded, and they've been trying to push people more into TRICARE Standard over TRICARE Prime. They've been trying to push families into it, so they're looking to cut the amount of people on TRICARE. They're cutting Medicaid. They're trying to gut the Affordable Care Act. They are restricting funds to states from Medicare and Medicaid. And here's this motherfucker. Here's this motherfucker. This piece of shit. Who's just fucked over the military just so many goddamn times. And what does he fucking do? He's got the goddamn balls to walk into a military hospital and look at the medical officials that he has cut funding for, that he has laughed in the faces of, demand that they treat him in a fucking office suite, and then walk out of there like the gallant fucking prince.
Well,
This is
and
this is the level of fucking sociopathy that we're dealing with this shit. This man
he'd rather.
spat in the face of military members, but feels that he has every entitled right to walk into a military hospital and have the service members who he cut shit from wait on him fucking hand and foot as if it's expected. And he wasn't treated like the rest of them. He wasn't put in a fucking bed ward with 10 other beds in it. No, he got himself a nice little fucking VIP area that's got a full-scale fucking office. Full-scale fucking office for him to work out of. That's completely locked down 24/7. He
Well,
cut their
yeah, because
fucking
there's
funding
two
and then goes in
Americas.
this.
Well, that's because
There's
there's two
two.
Americas. There's ours, like where the vast majority of us live and scrape and die, and then there's the ultra wealthy. And for all of the people who
But this
rallied
isn't
around
the
Trump
no, but
because
this
he was
isn't the ultra
different,
wealthy. This isn't the ultra wealthy. This is Walter Reed. This is exactly what a president is. This is where a president is supposed to go, is Walter Reed. However, this isn't like he's paying for some elite form of care. This is exactly the same fucking care that every president and every government official fucking receives. It's
yeah,
the
they don't have
fact
to worry
of
about what we do.
it's the fact of he spat in the face of fucking service members and then expects them to bow at his feet and save his life.
Well, and this is where we get to the justice portion of this, because why did we start with COVID? For a stream titled Injustice in America. When you're talking about healthcare, this is one of the biggest disparities that we
And
face in this country.
let,
It's
let
a
me let me
completely
tell
different
y'all.
fucking world.
Let me tell y'all what it was like growing up where I grew up. I grew up in the projects, New York City, 1980s, 1990s. Y'all heard the stories, whatever. So it's funny because a 10-minute bus ride away was Donald Trump's neighborhood, the neighborhood he grew up in. Two very, very different classes. And where he grew up, they had a ton of, private doctors and specialists, and Parkway Hospital was great. Parkway Hospital, if you could afford and your life afforded you to get there, you went. But where I grew up, we had Jamaica Hospital, which was the dump center for the mentally ill in Queens. My neighborhood had Medicare doctors and sliding scale doctors. We didn't have high-end specialists in my neighborhood. We didn't have
And
them.
if you have mental health issues, those doctors will treat you like you're a drug seeker.
Now let's do some math here. In my projects alone, we had something. Hold on, let me Google this real quick. In my projects alone, mind you, 7 floors, 4 apartments to a floor. I have to Google how many.
While you take a second to Google, I'm going to remind the chat we've got 49 people, 50 people watching right now, and only 26 likes. If you guys could pop down and pay your respects to the algorithm really quick, even if you're just going to dislike it because you don't ever want to see my face on your timeline again, that's great. But we're trying to get a little bit of engagement because I have a feeling that with that list and with the swearing at the beginning, this video might get throttled. And I would really like folks who didn't get a chance to tune in live to get to check it out.
Sorry. Right,
also, thank you again to the folks at the beginning who did super chats. The channel just got monetized, and I'm really, really grateful for your guys' support. My mic crapped out on Tuesday, and I had to spend all of my Patreon money on a new one.
So let's figure this. Now, when they built it in 1952, it was meant to house 4,500 people. 7-story apartment buildings, 35 buildings, anywhere from 1 to 3 bedroom apartments. Got about 6,000 people just in those projects alone. We then had another apartment complex that was set up for a separate union behind us. So you figure another 3,000 people behind us. So you're looking at numbers that rival most small towns in the South. I remember 2 doctors in my neighborhood. 2 for 5,000 people. I'm sorry, 7,000 people. I remember 2, maybe 3. They were Medicaid doctors, they were Medicare doctors, they were sliding scale doctors, and they were grossly underfunded. So how do you expect 7,000 people between 2 or 3 doctors who are underfunded to have access to tests, to have access to care, to have... And then you had Jamaica Hospital, which, I mean, was a fairly large hospital, but Jamaica Hospital also, it serviced most of South and Central Queens. So you've got 1 million people, 2 million people coming into one hospital with 7,000 of them split between 3 doctors. How do you expect adequate care in that kind of situation?
Well, and the hospital would also be, let's talk a little bit about PCPs and getting equipment in that system. The hospital's going to be your primary thing because back then the ACA didn't exist, so the vast majority of people could only go to the hospital when things got that bad.
Right, and by the way, here, the emergency room are not administering tests unless you were running a fever. So you can't even get a COVID-19 test at an emergency room. Wipe that shit off the table. You can't go to the emergency room to go get a fucking COVID-19 test. So you've got 8,000 people. You want to include the Orthodox neighborhood and the Muslim neighborhood. Now we're talking 10,000 people. Between 3 doctors who are living in close quarters, who are living in, excuse me, state-funded apartments. How do you adequately get care to this many people during a pandemic? You don't. You don't. Especially when they're telling you just sit at home and die. This is the same across the nation when it comes down to poor neighborhoods, when it comes down to black neighborhoods, when it comes down to neighborhoods of people of color. This is the same fucking setup every goddamn where. And then you go out to, say, the Holler, where they literally don't have doctors to the point that people are sleeping overnight in parking lots for free medical care.
We had something similar when we had the tent set up out here. Mm-hmm. It got to the point where they made you like pre-call in for pre-screening because they had so many people lined up that they were actually starting to block traffic.
How do you adequately provide care to that? And the Tiger moms and the fucking The fucking doTERRA moms up in Connecticut, they got the money. They got the money
Mm-hmm.
to go to private doctors and fucking get their kids tested every 2 fucking weeks if they want to.
I mean,
The
we can
people in
get
fucking
into.
the
We talked
people
about Woo last week. We can get into those tiger moms are taking advantage of
right,
desperate people. Like here,
but
you can't get into a doctor's office and pay seven
right,
hundred
you
dollars
you
to be
got you
told to
take a
fuck
bus,
off.
you take a bus 10 minutes over to Trump's neighborhood, and literally there's doctors' offices like Starbucks on the fucking corners. So these people are fine. But when you're stuck in the fucking projects and you got 3 doctors to 10,000 people, there's no fucking way you're gonna get to everyone. And they don't give a shit if they live or die. They don't fucking care because it's not one of them. They're just living off the state. They're living off Medicare. They expect us to take care of them, and that's how it fucking should be. They don't give a fuck. You literally took a bus to Trump's fucking neighborhood, in every fucking shopping center, every corner. We had doctors in private houses out there. Doctors would literally buy private houses to run their fucking their offices out of. There was
I'm sorry to
so
hear that,
frequent.
X.
X, I'm sorry. But when it came down to the black neighborhood, they don't give a fuck. Then what do they tell you to do? Go to Jamaica Hospital. So you're sitting in an emergency room with mentally ill people, with gunshot victims, with abused kids, with abused women. You're sitting in a packed fucking emergency room that you ain't gonna see fucking nobody for 6 goddamn hours, and that's if you get a fucking bed. And if you make a stir about it because they like to get money for mentally ill patients to transfer them to private hospitals, you make too much of a stir, you're a fucking disturbance. And now you're getting the cops called on you, and your ass is getting locked up in the fucking psych ward. And if you keep on, now you're going to fucking Creedmoor. Now they're locking your ass up in Creedmoor. Now you're in a fucking institution with more people, with more exposure, and more fucking people dying. And this shit is happening all the fucking time. I knew, and everybody was sitting here screaming, New York is doing so well, New York is doing so well. And I'm like, no, it's gonna take one fuck up. It's gonna take one fuck up for that city to go back to shit. And what is happening? Murder is on the rise, robbery is on the rise, all sorts, all fucking violent crime has been shot up. Murder has been shot up 93% in that city because they did not take care of their poorest victims. They did not take care of their poorest citizens. So when shit hit the fan and there was nothing to be found, a hustler is gonna fucking hustle, and they're gonna do what they gotta do to fucking survive.
And while we're on that topic, when you're talking about institutionalization, this is a really good place, I think, to transition to the second topic we wanted to talk about tonight, which is on the subject of medical care and on the subject of the pandemic and Trump. The election season is actually covering up what I think is one of the biggest stories currently out there that a lot of you probably haven't heard. And if you have, it's only been briefly mentioned on social media. But there was a whistleblower who came out in Georgia stating that the detention centers, which I'm going to just call them what they are, they're concentration camps. Demonetize me, Susan, please. The concentration camps in Georgia have been mass sterilizing women. They've been, like, they had one particular doctor who was implicated in it. There have been multiple whistleblowers that have come out. One particular is currently remaining anonymous when it comes to the press, but they have come out, like, their name has been published in one leak. They were a nurse that worked there, and there was a guard that worked there that came out as well. But basically what's been going on is people, not only have they not been getting adequate...
I covered this in my War on Women.
Yeah, you mentioned this in your War on Women because, like, you remember, I sent you a bunch of rage, like, and y'all are about to get a taste of it.
This, if you guys want a really good in-depth fucking thing about what's going on with that, on my channel, which is linked below, the War on Women video gives you an excellent breakdown of the first-hand accounts and what's been stated in the whistleblower reports on my channel. So.
Well, and a lot of people that have heard about this are reacting with shock. Like, how could this happen in the United States? So, I'm about to tell you guys... I'm about to learn you guys a thing. This shit happened in my family. I have a great aunt who was sterilized in, for lack of a better way to put it, you know those boarding schools where they would, like, take Native American women and they'd adopt them out and stick them in the fucking boarding schools? Well, one of those was up here in Washington. And my great aunt got sterilized. Like, that's a thing that freaking happened. And when you're talking about, like, not only are people there getting COVID and not getting tested, like, tests are just not being given out, but women who've had no, like, medical history whatsoever with things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, people going in for yeast infections are coming back with no uteruses.
So you want to talk about institutionalization with, especially with COVID. I got boys that are locked up, upstate New York, Rikers Island, right now. They're not testing them.
Mm-hmm.
They're only testing them if they literally hit every bullet point symptom. That's the shit ain't nobody telling you. They're not testing prisoners at all. Um,
Well, in some states, they were pushing to release all nonviolent offenders because like
yeah, New
prisons are
York won't do
basically
that.
incubation points.
New York won't do it. And uh, guys who are now, I can only say guys because I only know of men who are currently in the system. They are they don't want to come out of their cells because they're afraid to interact with other prisoners. They're afraid to interact with the guards, and they're being put in the box. And if the box is solitary confinement, they're being put in the box for anywhere to 60 to 90 days because they are failing to follow an order. They are failing to follow movement because they don't want to sit in the chow hall. They are being punished for hunger strikes to avoid. They're not giving out face masks, and they will not test them unless you're like in a pool of your own sweat on the floor and can't breathe. And even then, they have to fill out paperwork to get you sent over to the hospital. This is happening in every detention facility, every prison in the country right now. Everyone, ICE facilities, state facilities, federal facilities. This is happening.
Well, and I'm just gonna say for the chat, by the way,
But
abolish
then,
ICE.
but then, but then, California's on fire. So what does
Mm-hmm.
California do? California takes its prisoners and forces their prisoners to be firefighters during wildfires. So you've got these men who are exposed to COVID, possibly have gotten over it and didn't know, already have lung damage, and then they're putting them in the middle of the largest fucking series of wildfires that we've seen in modern history.
Which, for the record, by the way, if y'all go check out my Twitter, scroll back a while because, well, there's been a lot of shit going on. But those wildfires were so bad that up here in frickin' Washington, like the smoke got so thick that there was one day that at the middle of the day at noon, the sky looked yellow like sunset, and you
Mm-hmm.
could not see the sun.
Yeah. And what California does is part of your indentured servitude to the state of California is if there is a wildfire, they take inmates and use inmates to fight fires. These are not trained firefighters. These, no, no. So you put them in an institutionalized place of overcrowding, terrible conditions, with COVID running fucking rampant. You then take these fucking men, because it's mainly men, if I'm not mistaken. It's mainly men. I don't know about women prisoners being forced to do this, but you take these men, you put them in a situation where they're literally breathing in ash all day long, and then put them back in a prison with COVID-19 running rampant. Do not ever fucking tell me that this is not a form of genocide. Because all this is killing is people of color. This is all this is killing is poor people. Because I'll
I
tell
mean,
you
it's
right
not just
now,
genocide, it's fucking slavery first.
it's slavery first, and then genocide. And I'll tell you right now, Camp Motherfucking Cupcake with fucking Bernie Madoff and the rest of them, they're not getting pulled for this shit. No, they keep this shit at a fucking state level where they don't give a fuck no more. And the men that fucking Kamala Harris kept now, y'all, I'm still fucking voting for Biden. So before you get on my motherfucking ass, I'm still voting for Biden. However, men that Kamala Harris refused to hear wrongful imprisonment and wrongful conviction cases in California are currently out there fighting these fucking fires as not trained firemen, breathing in ash all day, and then coming back to an institution where COVID-19 is running rampant when she knew that they were wrongfully convicted. Still didn't fucking do anything about it. Yeah, I'm just doing my job. So were the fucking Nazis, bitch, and I covered this shit. I covered this shit in my War on Women too. I covered the blazing comparison between modern day America and the Nazi fucking party. If y'all fucking think that this shit, this is not only is it slavery, it's fucking genocide. They don't give a fuck. And yes, It's more
Okay, so
perpetuated
here's
even more.
like, can I interrupt your rant for a
Hmm.
second because you do have a constitutional specialty.
Hmm.
Um, let's talk about why prisoners can be enslaved.
This is lawful. This is, wait, I'll pull it up.
This is your specialty, so
Let
I'm
me
gonna
pull it
let
up.
you have the floor for this one
Because I always
because
fuck up. I always fuck up this one.
when they abolished slavery, they left a provision in the US Constitution specifically to allow prisoners to continue to be enslaved,
I'm pulling it up.
specifically for
I'm
that
pulling it up
purpose.
because I always fuck up. I always fuck up the numbers on this one.
But here's the thing, if you wonder about systemic violence and you wonder about police brutality and you wonder about the overpolicing of POC neighborhoods, especially in the South, think about that provision and what, say, locking up a whole bunch of POC men in particular, because it affects men and women, but it affects men particularly badly. Think about the longer prison sentences and all of that, and then think about what Jen's about to tell
Thank you,
you
Russ.
about the Constitution.
Russ, I always tend to jumble the details of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment because they were all handed down at once. And trying to fucking memorize amendments is ridiculous. So, 13th Amendment in the United States, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So what this says is, you cannot own people.
This isn't
You
some idiot.
cannot.
This is the whole of Congress when they passed this amendment.
No, this is the 13th Amendment. This is the amendment that abolished slavery. This is the 13th Amendment that clearly stated you could not own a slave anymore. You could not, no person in this country shall be held under slavery or indentured servitude except if they are a prisoner or guilty of a crime. And not only does this extend to federal, it explicitly states that all parties within the jurisdiction of the country in the 13th Amendment makes it legal for prisoners to be slaves. It is in the 13th Amendment. This was their loophole. And this is how they controlled the black community. So I'm going to give y'all a little brief history. This is how the government fucked over the black community after the passing of the 13th Amendment. They outlawed slavery. Slaves had to go free. Indentured servants had to go free. However, they would lock a black man up for debt. They would lock a black man up for being homeless. They would lock a black man up for being on the street past 6 o'clock at night. They would lock a black man up for not using the right fountain. They would lock a black man up for not being on the fucking right land that they were supposed to be on.
Or as one of the folks on the panel that you did not too long ago on this subject, they would lock a black man up for being black in the wrong neighborhood.
For being black in the wrong neighborhood. And then they would put them into the penal system. Now, y'all saw fucking Emmett Till. Y'all saw what the fuck happened with Emmett Till. A black man did not stand a fucking chance in the goddamn justice system. Worse than he didn't stand a chance today. So they locked these people up. Right after the 13th Amendment abolished fucking slavery. However, they'd lock them up and then make them slaves to the state. And it's still happening. How many fucking hundreds of years later? How many?
Well, and let's face it, like, here's another thing that a lot of people do not fucking like when I bring up, but Jen and I have had many conversations about this, so I'm pretty sure I'm safe to bring it up here. Here's something that a lot of people don't know. We basically live in an aristocracy, but we don't just live in an aristocracy, we practically live in an oligarchy. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason I say that is because we have generational familial dynasties. And when you start arguing with me about that, but when you start telling me that, political office is not one of them. All right, so let me go ask you, how many Nixons are currently in Congress? Y'all. How many Kennedys?
Y'all, I'm
here
part
in Washington.
Of one. Y'all, I'm part of one.
And for those of you who are here in Washington, the Gregoires are another example, and the Locks. Currently, a Gregoire who, even though she's absolutely batshit fucking nuts, and I'm gonna say this about one of my own congressional representatives, because she was not from my district, is in our state Congress. All right? Like, basically, we have families who prep their freaking kids. Like, W had no business gaining the presidency, and yet the Bushes are another familial dynasty.
I could tell y'all right now how my family is responsible for the economic shit that we're in. My family, my cousins, are the Aldrich Rockefellers. That's my family. The Federal Reserve came to be when one of my great however the fuck uncles sat down on his island and decided to draft an internal banking system. He created the checks and balances, and he created it to make sure that his kind were protected. He then married his daughters to the Rockefeller family, to the Astor family, to the Taylor family, to so many. And then their sons were born with the prestigious name and the high backing of so much money. And their grandfather, they didn't put him up as the face, but their grandfather was the founder of the Federal Reserve. I still have family in politics. And when I got in, I was the family that they helped get their money off of and then said, fuck you, we're too bougie for you. Yeah, my family was the one they were too bougie for. So when I got into politics, they very much expected a Republican Aldrich. Oh, granted, they weren't Republicans then, but what they are now. And the reason why I decided to take a different course and not continue a career in politics is because I spent more time fighting against what my family's legacy was and was unable to enact what I wanted to, because I had to constantly go back and defend myself and constantly try to undo the things that my constituents felt I was responsible for upholding on my shoulders because of who my family was. This shit is still happening. There's still Bushes in office. Trump's sister is a sitting judge. Dick Cheney's daughters are both in Congress. There are still members of my family that are still running. And they're all in fucking finance in my family. I'm the one who didn't get the fucking math gene. But, yeah. I'm one of them. That's part of the Dragon Queen joke, is she was from a once great political dynasty family. They're still there. The names change, but the players don't. The front face changes every 4 to 8 years. Players don't.
Well,
the Federal Reserve is running on the same fucking rules that my great whatever the fuck uncle set how many fucking years ago. They're still running on the same ones.
Well, and when you're coming out onto, like, this brings us to how we open the show tonight. Because we're talking about institutionalized racism. We're talking about, like, we're going to get into redlining at some point. We're talking about slavery and how slavery is still legal in the United States, which at some point I might actually ask you for help, Jen, on a video on that. Sure. Like, because, like, I honestly, it's one of the topics I've been wanting to cover on my channel forever.
Absolutely.
Because it is. Like, locking POCs up is the way that they keep us in that position. Like, even folks that are white passing like me, in my fucking state, I don't pass. And in my fucking state, I've been treated differently by the cops because of who my parents were. Because of who my tribe is. Because of who the fuck I'm supposed to be based off of that. And this giant-ass list in the background, which at the end, you know, we're probably going to pop the both of us back into backstage so y'all can read it a second time. Because for those of you who were not here at the beginning, we did about a minute of just that list. So y'all could take in the full depth of people who have died. And POC specifically at the hands of cops. It's not even a complete list. It's a list up until like May of 2020.
I'll tell y'all right now, the person I grew up with ain't on there. Sandra Bland, I didn't see Sandra's name up there. This is not a full list. This is just Amadou Diallo's not up there. Rodney King, and I know they didn't directly kill Rodney King, but you are not going to fucking sit here and tell me that all the shit that man took on didn't contribute to his death. You will not fucking sit here and tell me that shit. You will not fucking sit here and tell me a black man who got pulled over and fucking beat and then developed an alcoholism problem and a drug problem so that he had no fucking means of receiving help for. You are not going to fucking sit here and tell me that PTSD from that incident and that night did not contribute to his death. You will fucking not. I will not be convinced of otherwise.
And I know that in these times when we're dealing with COVID, when we're dealing with the absolute shit show that was the debate, like we were going to talk about that originally, like before I found out about the freaking like concentration camps and got pissed, and like we were talking about the freaking before Trump ended up with COVID and all that shit. We were originally like, hey, we'll do a retrospective on the debate because it's happening like the week before we do our show.
Um,
Nah, because there's more important shit that we need to talk about. The
can
debate
can
was a
I
shit show.
can I just address what MUI had stated? There was another loophole of slavery: sharecropping.
Mm-hmm.
Sharecropping. Now, my family was sharecroppers, and my white family was sharecroppers. They were poor, and they were sharecroppers before, during, and after slavery. However, when they freed the slaves, they gave them nothing. They gave them nothing. They gave them shit to survive. So the only option that these now free slaves had were to go back to the masters who owned them and then fall into a sharecropper situation where they were working the land for their house. It was no different. And they weren't gonna try they weren't gonna try white men for beating black men. They weren't gonna fucking try that shit. They weren't gonna do that shit. Racism never, and this is man, this is the shit that fucking pisses me off. When I get these fucking, it's been centrist fucking, it's not even fucking conservatives. Conservatives will fucking own up to the fact that they're fucking racist and they're just happy that the fucking white people are in power. Fucking centrists will sit here and be like, well, we elected Obama. We live in a post-racial society. The fuck we don't. Our racism didn't stop. It fucking evolved. It got more shady. It got more complex. It evolved from primitive, outright owning and beating people to locking them up to
It got new
denying them
names.
health care.
It
No,
got
it's
new
still
names.
racism. It didn't get a new name. It's still fucking racism, but it
Well,
just became more
eugenics
complex.
became race realism, which, by the way, just a quick aside, Brian A, I saw you say as a Black Hellenist, shout out, you're valid. I'm gonna say that. I don't know if you've seen my video on folkism, but anybody who tries to tell you you can't walk that path can go fuck themselves. I'm just gonna say that as the host of the channel.
Can as Modius
Asmodeus.
Asmodeus. Yes, my son came home with a worksheet about the Trail of Tears. Now, we live on it, literally on it. There have probably been hundreds of thousands of people that have died where my house sits. On the paper, they called it the Great Relocation, and they depicted natives happily with their luggage like they're just moving to a new house. Yeah. Yeah. That's what they taught my son in school. So I took my son out. I walked him through our backyard and I walked him through our neighborhood. And I took him up to a park here, which was the last stop in our state. It was a checkpoint for our state. There's a plaque. And I walked him over it. And he was still under the impression that they just happily moved. So it's okay. Now he's young. I wasn't going to beat his body up or anything. I said, we're moving. Start walking. Just looked at me. We're moving. Start walking. And he walked and he walked and he goes, well, what about the cats? What about my clothes? What about my toys? I said, no, you don't get that. Walk. Well, where are we walking to? And I pulled out my phone. I pointed in North Dakota. I said, we're going to walk all the way there with just what we have right now. And he looked at me. And I was like, that's literally what they made them do. I was like, this was not a relocation. This was literally called the Trail of Tears. And he started crying. He was like, what do you mean my toys? What do you mean my clothes? I said, you know how I'm crying? That's why they call it the Trail of Tears. That's how I taught my son about it. Because they literally called it the Great Relocation. The school, people died on the grounds of the school.
Can we get some fire in the chat for Jen being a badass, please? We have not had a
I
happy.
wasn't
We have
gonna
not
make
had
him.
a happy moment of laughter
I
like in
wasn't
this
gonna make
entire
him walk
chat.
like more than like 10, 15 minutes. Like I wasn't gonna actually make him walk to fucking North Dakota.
But that's still a pretty badass way to fucking teach your son. Like, again, can we get some fire in the chat for Jen being a fucking badass? We haven't had a moment of joy on this stream, and part of the reason for that was intentional. Like, part of that was fucking intentional, right? Like, I haven't even called for super chats for the most part because this shit is that serious. We are talking about stuff that I should not be profiting off of, honestly. Like, the only reason I even mentioned it earlier was because of the fact that my fucking channel is struggling right now a little bit because I had to replace my mic, so I can't get any new materials this week. Thank the gods I was already getting stuff before that. Like, I got all the stuff I needed for this month. But, like,
Yeah,
this
I
shit
don't
is
play with this
serious
kind of
shit.
shit. I don't play with this kind of shit. I don't.
This is not something you can crack a joke
I
in, honestly.
I don't
Like,
play
this
with this
isn't
kind of
something
shit
we
with
can
my kid.
banter with.
I don't play with this kind of shit with my kid. My kid's coming to an age now where he's starting to ask me about the cops. And I had to have the conversation with him. This is before the autistic child was shot.
Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee is another good
Yes.
resource.
This was before the autistic child was shot, so this was not something that we had to touch on. But his best friend is black, and he started making these jokes about being a police officer and running the jail and everything else. And I was like, okay, we've got to sit down. We got to have this talk. And I showed him names, and I showed him the newspapers, and I didn't show him the death videos because I didn't think he was quite ready for that yet.
Yeah, did you hear? Speaking of that, Suris got one of his videos taken down.
Mm-hmm.
He did a compilation of not even death videos. They were just like police brutality to protesters. It wasn't cops killing people. Even it was brutality to protesters. Just people getting like freaking tear gassed and stuff like that. And like YouTube took that down because it was wrong, right. Even though he pulled almost all that footage from newsreels from YouTube. So like. What you doing there, Susan?
I love this Susan thing. So he started making these jokes about being in charge of the jail and being a cop and arresting people and giving people tickets, and so I sat him down. And like I said, his best friend's black, and I had this conversation with him that while he may call the cops and they may help him, they're not going to help his best friend. And I was really in your face about it, and I laid out a picture montage of black men or POCs even who had been killed by cops, and I said, what's different? I was like, well, what do you notice? What's different? And he couldn't quite grasp it, and I was like, what skin color does everybody have? He was like, black. I was like, what skin color does not one person have? He's like, white. And I was like, there you go, kiddo. We're getting here. And he started to kind of come to terms with it. My son's autistic, so outward questions aren't a big thing. But I can tell when he's kind of coming through on it. And I had to explain to him that if somebody calls the cops and you are there with your best friend, you need to stand in front of your best friend. You need to talk to the cops. You need to try to not call the cops as much as possible.
Well, and the last couple of times that we have talked about this, where the subject's been brought up, you told the story of when you were peddling drugs and your fucking friends got in trouble and they pulled you aside and were like, "Are you okay?"
So back in the day when your homegirl was a hoodlum, I mean I am now, but in much more legal ways. New York had the Stop and Frisk program, and I was up in Washington Heights and Red Hook, Brooklyn, were the two places I was in. And when they decided to stop us, the first thing they asked me was, are you okay? Are you in danger? Meanwhile, they got my boys zip tied on the ground already. And then it was, well, what are you doing here and everything else? And it wasn't me even being a drug dealer. They figured I was a crackhead because I was the white girl in the neighborhood. And if I wasn't being sex trafficked or, held against my will, then I must be a drug addict to be up here. And I mean, I wasn't the addict. But But mind you, I was sitting there, especially when I was in Washington Heights, I was sitting there with friends of mine who, one was going to Columbia. The other was a fucking drama major at NYU. The other one was going pre-med. Like, and here's my fucking hoodlum drug slinging ass, like, fucking sitting there. Like, I'm like, yo, if they search me right now, I'm fucked. Like, I am straight up fucked if they search
But
me
they
right now.
didn't, did they?
They didn't search me. They searched them, but they didn't search me. Because, and what they did was, the way that they lined us up was, they took them first, and took me to the side and questioned me. And when it was clear that I was not there against my will, they separated me from my friends. They separated the white girl from the black and Hispanic men. We weren't even faced the same. We were faced pivoted out separate from each other. And they didn't search me. And the excuse that they used was, we didn't have a female officer on the scene. NYPD never gave a fuck about that shit before, but apparently they gave a fuck these 2 nights. If I would have gotten searched, y'all, I wouldn't have been sitting here right now. I would have been a guest of New York State, and I would not have been able to talk to y'all right now. I would have been fucked had they searched me. They didn't search me. But they took them in the paddy wagons. They let me go.
You were the one dealing.
And I'm the one fucking doing illegal shit. And like, but they like watched me. They like watched me get on the train and made sure like I left the hood. And they're like, "Oh no, you go ahead, you go." I'm like, "Fuck you, taking my boys. Don't be concerned about that." Now I'm holding. Now, granted, this was 20 years ago. This was a fucking lifetime ago for me. Not that kind of person. I ain't doing that shit no more. All my hustle's illegal now. Grew up, had the kid. Can't be fucking around with that. All my hustle's illegal. But back then, they were not. Yeah. And, okay, so, another funny story. I was dating somebody who was not Hispanic, but due to his background, looked Hispanic. And I'm not going to share the background because it's very distinct, and I don't want to put somebody out like that. We were driving through Kentucky. And it was the middle of the night. Where the fuck were we going? We were going to some fucking conference up in Kentucky. It's pouring rain. It's like 2 a.m, right? Now he looks Hispanic. And I'm not talking like New York, Puerto Rican Hispanic. I'm talking like California Mexican Hispanic. And if y'all grew up in either California or New York, y'all know what I'm talking about when I say this is how they looked. So the cop pulls us over, right? Now this dude is like the best.
Have a good night, old man Dan.
Good night, honey. This dude's like the best soldier at the fucking army base that we were in. He made his fucking rank mad fast and shit. Never had a criminal record. Like, doesn't own guns. Doesn't have a concealed carry permit. Only drinks once in a while. Like, this dude was laced, right? This dude was like straight laced, right? So they pull us over, and I'm carrying. I'm the one that's fucking carrying in the car, right? They tell him, "Sir, step out of the car." And he looks at me, and I'm like, "Yo, if we gonna pop off, we gonna pop off today. Fuck it, that's it." Like, fuck it. If I'm gonna be on CNN, I'm gonna be on CNN today. So, they search him, they run his shit. Now, mind you, my little ass, the fucking hoodlum and the fucking crazy bitch that I am, is still in the fucking car. Mind you. They got him outside in the pouring rain, hands on the fucking hood.
Okay, you and I both know you have the alabaster skin of like a freaking marble statue, all right?
But
like,
they got him out on the fucking hood, right? So he gets back in the car, and he's like, "Yo, you carrying tonight?" I was like, "It's Kentucky, yeah, I'm carrying." And he's like, "So I gotta ask, what would have happened if shit popped off?" And I was like, "You are not gonna see me on CNN crying in this car like they shot my man. This shit is gonna be some Bonnie and Clyde bullshit, wild, wild west. If you're dying, I'm dying, and fucking everybody's coming with us. A cab, motherfucker. I will abolish this fucking police force my goddamn self." No. I was like, there is no
I love how you start cracking the one-liners as soon as I say this topic is too serious to freaking
There's
crack
no way.
about.
And I will promise y'all this. If I am ever in a situation where I am with somebody, a person of color, who is shot by the cops in front of me, I am not going to be the bitch on CNN crying. It is not going to be me. It will not. You will hear me scream "A cab." and try to eliminate a police department myself before I go. Will not be that fucking one. Yeah, if I'm going down, fuck it. Everyone, nope, nope, absolutely not. Yeah, my son's even whiter than I am. Like, I can hold my son up to a light bulb and I can see through him. Like, why do I have to spend money on X-rays? Just put his head up to the lamp. He's fine. Don't worry. He's good. I can see through his skull. We're good.
Coming back to, like, kind of coming back to racial profiling shit, though. First off, if y'all are white and you want to try to tell me that this shit ain't a fucking thing, I hate to say this, but again, in Washington, I don't fucking pass, and I got fucking profiled when I was doing, like,
This shit
protest
ain't a
work,
fucking
so.
thing. I'm white. This shit ain't a thing. All right. So.
Just because you haven't experienced it, the fact you haven't experienced it is part of the proof that it's a fucking thing.
This is I get shit from white people that are like, this doesn't affect you, this isn't a thing, you're hyping it up, and I'm like, all right, so I'm gonna tell y'all y'all gather around. It's Mama Dragon story time. Gather around, get your pillows, get in a circle.
We're getting a three for guys. Like you guys should. Time. This is a special fucking night. We are getting 3 personal stories from Jen.
Y'all, it's circle time. Circle time. So, 2006, my ex-husband was deployed. I was living in upstate New York. And I had agreed that I was good. We still had some wives up there that didn't go home for the holidays. So I was like, all right, I'm going to spend Thanksgiving up here. And then I'm going to spend Christmas down in the city with my mother. So I got on a plane that Monday. Because it was JetBlue and it's Monday's mad cheap to fly. And every Monday they had those JetBlue chips. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to fly on Monday, right? I'm going to get in. And so the way my mother, now mind you, my mother was still living in the project. So the way it was set up was you walked in. And there was like a dining room as soon as you walked in. And you saw directly into her living room where the TV was. Hold on, Ali, I see the message and I hook it back to you so that we're having some story time here.
And look, it gave me the opportunity to type it.
I know. I see you.
For those of you who don't know, Jen and I talk in text all throughout the stream
to make sure
that we're not cutting each other off and to make sure we stay on fucking topic. Like, this is just a thing that happens. It's part of why we look as professional as we do on the times we do.
So I walk in, right, and I brought my fucking cat. I brought fucking Gizmo with me. Gizmo died actually this past February. I brought fucking Gizmo with me because I was like, I'm spending mad time out here, right? So here I am, coming out of fucking LaGuardia, and for any one of you motherfuckers that have flown through LaGuardia, you need a combat badge getting through this bitch. That's just fucking LaGuardia. If you have flown through and had to navigate through LaGuardia Airport, you deserve a fucking combat badge. Just saying. So I come off, right? I walk in my mother's house. I didn't even drop my suitcase. Like, I put the cat down. I unzipped the cat carrier, let her out. And I look up. And I see Sean Bell's face on TV. Now, imagine, I grew up with Sean. So I was like, fuck. Fuck, did Sean get, caught up into some shit? What happened? And I'm thinking, like, he got busted for some shit. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck happened to Sean? That's how I found out the cops killed him. I literally walked into my mother's house off a plane the next day. And found out the cops had shot him. At his bachelor party. That's how I found out about Sean. So, when I got people that are like, you're white, what do you're white, why are you perpetuating this race war? Why are you perpetuating the divide?
Or here's my personal favorite. Well, you're acknowledging race, so like you're totally the real racist. Like the left is the real racist because they keep drawing attention to the fact that there's racial differences in America.
So and I get that. I get you're yelling about this. You keep the divide going. Why we're all one race, we human, stupid shit. And
That's a continuation from a comment I
Yeah,
posted earlier about people treating Carpathia like she doesn't belong in stores,
right.
like high-end stores.
And I'm like, y'all gotta realize that when they shot Sean, I believe two of the cops were Hispanic. So, we got told that it wasn't racial because the cops were Hispanic. That's that's what we got. It wasn't racial profiling. It wasn't. They didn't act as if it was a race issue because they were Hispanic.
Well, and here's the thing,
And
right? Like on your stream that you had not too long ago, like with Cirrus and then them.
Dietrich and Nate.
Yeah, Dietrich and Nate. Like one of them I knew the name of, the other one I hadn't seen before. Like, because for the record, guys, I'm fairly new in the community ish. I don't know a lot of people. It's horrible. I forget names a million times. It has nothing to do with who the person is. If I haven't interacted with you a ton, I'll forget who you are. It's not. It has nothing to do with you. But one of the things I think it was Dietrich actually pointed out was that like no, it was Nate.
It was Nate.
Like black cops, they ain't gonna be any nicer to you. If anything, they're gonna be harder on you because they got something to prove.
And what people don't understand is that there's a big racial divide between the Hispanic community and the black community as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say dumbass shit like I don't see color, not only are you literally whitewashing the experience of every person of color of what they had to go through simply for the skin they were born with, but you are erasing the absolute work of perfection that the system has put in place.
So the person that said that I
Was
quoted
Nate
was
Brody.
an ex, yep, Nate Brody, an ex black
Was
cop.
Nate Brody.
Well, an
What?
ex cop man.
Yeah. So what you see at that, what you refuse to see is how they pit people of color against each other, and this is what's commonly called as colorism within the same race, and they will pit other POCs against other POCs against each other as well. Thank you, cartoon. This is the shit that they perpetuate. They take the Hispanic community and they turn it against the black community, and they make the Hispanic community feel as if even though they're not as high as white people, they're still slightly above black people. And that puts them somewhere in the middle, and that makes them better. And a lot of Hispanic people can be more white passing than black people, so that makes them better. And they can contour and often be quote unquote blessed genetically to have more European features. So therefore they
Well, what I
are.
saw with Puerto Rican folks was, at the very least, the ones that I knew growing up, which was one of my best friends was well, we're actually citizens. They even look down on other Hispanic people.
And that's part of colorism, which I don't feel too comfortable getting into because I'm white. But it's actually something that like my sister did it to her brother. Well, her brother more so did it to her, where our brother is like super light skinned, red hair, green eyes, and my sister's darker. And the family would be like, her family would straight be like, too bad that the boy was born light skinned, because then you could have married her up, kind of shit. And this is when you turn around and tell me that it wasn't a race issue with Sean. I'm like, fuck you, because I grew up watching the powers that be turn people of color against people of color to where they feel like they've got to fight for the scraps too. They feel like they got to fight for the scraps. Where white people got the cream of the crop, people of color got the scraps. So they pit one person of color against the other to fight for the fucking scraps for survival. That's exactly what the fuck this was. So when you turn around and say, I don't see color, you are refusing to see how the system set them up to literally fight for who deserves the scraps first. You are refusing to see that shit. And because of that line of thinking, those fucking cops were never tried for killing him. And it was to the point that they fired so wildly. New York, the Long Island Railroad's above ground, the subway's below ground. About a mile away was the Long Island Railroad station, and they fired so wildly that they almost hit somebody at the fucking rail station. Not fucking one of them was charged. Not one of them was nothing. Not one of them saw a fucking day in jail. They were paid. They were put on fucking paid leave. They still got paid. So when you fucking turn around and tell me I don't see color, you are literally not looking at the system that is causing people of color to fight for the fucking scraps. The bottoms of the fucking bottoms to try to survive.
Well, and here, I'm actually do something I don't do too often. I'm gonna talk as a POC, because I'm a half-breed. I am one. I'm gonna talk about my own group's colorism and shit that this government has done to us. Because one of the things that I talked about in my folkism video was eugenics and the eugenics policies in this country. And we touched on them a little bit earlier when we were talking about sterilization. Well, here, the most famous thing that you think of when you think of Native Americans and registering a tribe, right? Blood quantum. Where the fuck did that come from? Well, it started in the South. It started with the one-drop rules about black blood, right? Well, then they applied it to us, and what the fuck did they do? If you had a single drop of black blood in you, you couldn't be in a tribe. They would kick people off the fucking rolls because of intermarriage between Native Americans and black people. And what did that do? Well, you want to talk about interracial racism? You still see that in tribes today. Not all of them, but it happens.
Real quick, I gotta call somebody out right now. As Medeus, this is called fetishizing. I'm not interested in dating black girls, but damn if I don't see one with natural curly hair and a small afro as some ebony goddess. This is called fetishizing, and it's extremely racist. You won't date a black girl. You will not give a black woman your love, your attention, your time. But you will sit here and highlight something she has absolutely no control over, her looks, to suddenly say, oh, but this is acceptable. That's called fetishizing. It's no different than these little fucking white girls that run out here talking about, I gotta find me a black man to have mixed kids because mixed kids are so fucking pretty. What you are doing is ascribing look to a person, and look that has gotten them feared for their life, degraded, told that they had to change it. You will not give a black woman your time, but you will sit here and put her looks on a pedestal as something for you to play with. And that is fetishizing. And that is racist as fuck. It's not about taking pride in how they look. You yourself turned around and said you will not date a black woman. You will not love a black woman. You will not have children with a black woman. You will not marry a black woman. But damn, if something that she has been sat here and told was wrong, had to change, something she had no control over, and something that she had to turn around and say, I gotta cover, that's fetishizing bullshit. You are no different than some little white ass fucking girl thinking who the fuck she is and she's gonna slum it and she's gonna scum it, trying to have kids with a black man because they have such curly hair and pretty green eyes. Stop seeing black women for the color of their skin or the curve in their hips or the curve in their breasts and only for the curls in their hair. Start seeing them as the woman they are. A woman is a fucking woman, and a black woman has sat here and been bred and raped and used because of that curly hair, because of that swish in her step, because of the breast she owns. Stop that shit. Don't sit here and try to prop up women just because she's black about a black feature. A black woman is a woman. You are turning her into a fucking sideshow freak doing that shit. So maybe a woman doesn't want to be fucking blessed as an ebony goddess. Maybe she wants to be left the fuck alone. For her hair, for everything else. That ain't no fucking different than walking up to a black woman asking if you could touch that hair because you just find it so much of an ebony goddess. If she's so much of an ebony goddess, how come you won't have her in your bed? You won't have her as the mother of your children. She is not here for your entertainment. She is not here for you to put on a glass shelf and talk about her beauty, and that's all she's fucking worth.
Well, that was quite a thing. As somebody from a particular group of people that has been over fetishized in this way, I'm going to speak from experience when I can say we can tell when that's what it is. And yeah, that actually is pretty hurtful, and that's some internal racism. Like, people don't realize that it is, but it is.
That shit
And
pisses me the fuck off, man.
yeah,
Mm.
that is a form of racism. People are like, well, I'm not interested in like dating XYZ group because I've got a preference on looks. It's like, where do you think that preference comes from?
Yo, how would you feel if somebody said that about your sister? Your mother? How would you feel then? How would you feel if somebody turned around and said, I wouldn't sit down and get the time to know your sister, your mother, your daughter? But goddamn, I'ma sit here and stare at her fucking tits because that shit is just the fucking beauty of a goddess given life. How the fuck would you feel if that shit came to it? And then your sister, your mother, your daughter has been told her whole fucking life she's gotta cover them tits because it over sexualizes her and turns her into a whore. She's gotta change that. But for when it's you, especially being a fucking man, when it comes to you turning around and sitting here and saying, well, I'm just gonna sit here and highlight this one thing and all she's worth is her physical fucking beauty, how would that make you feel? This is shit that black women have been going through their entire fucking lives. They have been sitting here literally being raped to be bred as like livestock. That they did this shit in the fucking slavery time. They bred them like fucking livestock. And then what the fuck do they do now? They sit there and they tell black women they gotta cover up, they gotta straighten their hair, they gotta lighten their skin. But you got bitches like Kylie Jenner and fucking Bad Baby out here darkening their skin, overlining their lips, getting fucking ass injections to make money off of the same women that they're demonizing to not get the same fucking aspect of the pot that they are naturally born with. That is bullshit. And sitting here fucking saying I fucking love a black woman for this and that, she's a fucking goddess for her hair? Fuck you. You got a bunch of these little white girls out here fucking doing this shit and making themselves black women while kicking black women down so that they don't get a piece of that fucking pie. And it ain't no fucking different than when we did this shit to black women during slavery. They were good to bred white children. They were good to breed as fucking livestock. But goddamn if we didn't treat them like fucking human beings. None of us would be here if it wasn't for a black woman. Black women are literally the mothers of fucking humanity. Not a human being on this planet would be here if it wasn't for black women. And from this fucking day, none of you remember that shit. You're gonna sit here and fucking tell me about how beautiful her breasts are and how fucking beautiful her hair is. Why don't you talk about how beautiful a black woman's womb is for birthing the fucking human species? Your fucking white ass wouldn't be here sitting with your European ass features if it wasn't for a black woman who started your line.
Hey, Jen, the only reason I'm telling you to take a breath is because you're causing your mic to pop. You're making your mic pop. You're getting some love from the chat. Can we get some fire in the chat for Jen? I know that sometimes it can be hard to deal when like folks get popped up on, but I am gonna tell you guys, like personally, you might not hear it. I'm on the edge of going British at some point because like I've dealt with this shit myself. Literally, I've dealt with that same fetishization myself.
I have grown up with black women who they get preyed on by older men, and then they're tossed one side to the other. You're a fast-tailed fucking girl if you go after this older man, but you're fucking dumb as shit if you don't because he gets you out of the fucking hood. And then I know black women that are fucking school teachers that do nothing but wear fucking outfits that literally cover everything, but they can't, they're curvy because of their bodies and being told they're gonna lose their jobs if they don't walk into a fucking burlap sack. And the fucking damage, the mental, the fucking physical damage that puts on a black woman. Why? Why is it in this country that statistically any fucking baby in the NICU, what's gonna fare better? Literally, by science, is a black girl, but the minute she walks out of that fucking hospital in this country, she has the worst chance of living out of any fucking demographic here. Why? The fucking mental toll this shit takes on black fucking women is something we don't fucking talk about. The over fetishization and the over sexualizing when we want to sit there and make them fucking video girls and tell them that's all their fucking worth is. But the minute they go out into a public fucking arena, the minute they go out into a professional arena, they gotta straighten their hair, they gotta cover their breasts, they gotta cover their hips. How the fuck do you think a 13-year-old girl is supposed to deal with this shit? When on one hand they're telling her you gotta be sexy and put everything out there, and then on the other hand you're a fucking whore if you don't. How
Well,
do
and
you
let's talk.
expect her to be a strong fucking woman and learn how to own her fucking worth with a man? How? How do you expect this? And then what do? We deny them fucking adequate healthcare with generational fucking poverty, redlining their fucking neighborhoods, and sitting there giving them lack of education, lack of healthcare for them to fucking get better. And y'all wonder why they're fucking dying young? Y'all wonder why we've got fucking, y'all want to call them fucking welfare queens. Y'all fucking wonder why, because she don't fucking understand her worth when it comes down to a man. So her worth is between her legs and what the fuck her body is. So she keeps having fucking children with these men because that's all she's been taught to what she's worth. When it comes down to her wanting to find her worth, she doesn't have the fucking adequate medical care to figure it out, to work it through. And then y'all want to fucking chastise her for a system that was designed to break her? But then turn around and talk about her afro is pretty? Man, fuck you. I'm so ass done with this shit.
Well, and here's the other side of that too. You know, you also deal with this over sexualization, but undervaluing. You deal with and I'm sorry for folks in the chat that might get upset with hearing this, but I got to hear all about it when I was dating a black dude. A lot of black men undervalue black women also. Like, it's not just...
We just undervalue black women. Everybody undervalues black women. Everybody.
But it's like a status symbol, or at least it seemed like it was, for somebody to have, like, what was perceived as a white girlfriend. Like, or an Asian girlfriend, or something like that. Like, you know, there was, black women have an attitude problem. I've heard that a million times.
I can't speak on that because I'm not a black man. I'm not a black woman. So I'm not going to sit here and try to put myself in those shoes and try to understand why. I've heard why. But I can't, because I am the white girl.
I got to hear all about, like, how it was a problem, because, like, my boyfriend's mom was really progressive, right?
Hold on a second. Asmodeus, are you black? Are you black? That's the question I want to know. Are you black? It ain't about pride and heritage. This ain't your fucking heritage to be prideful of. And if you want to sit here and tell me about your prideful heritage and Irish, Italian, whatever the fuck, shut the fuck up. Literally, every one of our ancestors has been dominating this motherfucking planet since we understood what fucking race was.
Asmodeus says, I'm half Native American.
Half Native. So what pride in your heritage you want to talk about a black woman? What pride in your heritage? When you're not taking pride in her heritage, you're taking pride in her hair.
I think that the framing there might be that the reason that they won't date black women is because of being half Native. I'm not entirely sure though. Like, that's the only hint that we have.
You equate pride in your heritage with the black girls that used to talk to solutions about racism. Solutions about racism ain't in hair. Solutions about racism don't come down to 4C fucking hair. Solutions in racism come down to giving black people adequate fucking health care. It comes down to adequately not redlining their fucking neighborhoods and giving them the proper property tax to fund their fucking schools and give them a proper fucking education. It don't come down to fucking hair. So when you're sitting here fucking saying, oh, I'm going to sit here and look at her small ass fucking afro as, you know, some goddess shit. Fucking you doing? You're doing the same ass shit fucking slave drivers used to do. You're putting her up as fucking cattle on her goddamn features. How the fuck does this solve racism? How? It ain't, hair is not heritage, motherfucker. And shit. Hair can be an expression of heritage, but it's not all it comes down to. And yes, I understand that you're half Native, but don't fucking sit here and try to turn around and say you understand what heritage is to a black person, because you don't. You fucking don't. You understand what heritage is as a Native. You don't understand what heritage is to a black person. It's different.
I'll be the first to tell you it's different. I mean, your own experience is your own, but it is definitely different. Like, my best friend growing up was a black girl. Like, I ain't gonna name her.
Yo, shut the fuck up. Like, for real. For real. You totally fucking missed the point that I was making. To sit here and cling to your fucking confirmation bias. The girls you did like being with, chatting with them, had them.
That sounds like interracial.
No, that's not what you said. That's not what you said at all. You straight the fuck out said, I won't date a black woman. In your motherfucking words. You straight the fuck out said that. Don't fucking turn around and start backtracking your bullshit. Because I'm calling it the fuck out. Their heritage is not just their fucking hair. Shit. Like, what, the girls that you liked being with, that's the key fucking question here. The girls that you liked being with had small tiny afros and you saw them as ebony goddesses. What about the girls that had large afros, the girls that had twists, the girls that had box braids, the girls whose hair was relaxed? What about them? What about them? So it only applies for you to be prideful about somebody's heritage when you want to fuck them? That's the literal definition of motherfucking fetishizing. That's exactly what the fuck it is. Shit, yo. I can't stand that shit. Because I have literally seen black friends of mine who have met women who have turned around and said, I thought this woman was the one. This, you know, she was good to me. She was good to me. She was good to me. And then literally had kids by them and fucking left them. White men that did this shit to black women because they just wanted a pretty fucking child. I watched people's hearts get broken over this shit because they were literally treated like fucking chattel, like breeding stock. Shit, man. Stop fucking typing and listen.
We're getting pretty close to wrap-up time, love. So, in conclusion, like, I guess kind of what we were trying to talk about tonight, fetishizing is actually technically on topic. It's part of the ways in which POCs are taken advantage of by the system, right? You've got people who are allowed to be models, who are allowed to be, you know, freaking video girls, as you put it earlier. You got people who are chattel slaves still to the state, which, as we talked about, those blue bloods, as X put it earlier, they're the same ones that have been in charge from the beginning. A lot of those are old fucking families, old blood. You want to talk about so-called justice in America? What justice? Because honestly,
why? What justice? Yeah, what justice? Sean's daughter graduated fucking high school this year. High school. She ain't never seen a fucking dime or a shade of justice for her father. Not one.
Breonna Taylor's killers only got, one of them got charged for endangering the maybe white neighbors. Which the World Women video, if y'all haven't seen it.
Let me touch up on something else real quick. George Floyd was selling Lucy's, right? And they killed him. Now, for those of y'all who don't know what Lucy's are, they're loose cigarettes in a pack. That's a neighborhood staple. Like, I had my Lucy guy on Jamaica Ave. He was right at the Parsons train station. And when you take somebody like this out of the neighborhood, you're taking money out of the neighborhood economy. Yeah, he may be doing some slightly illegal shit, fine, whatever. But he goes and he buys those cigarettes, he sells them, right? He's out on the street hustling all day. He's gonna go to the Chinese shop. He's gonna go to the bodega. He's gonna go to the Jamaican place to get lunch, putting that money back into the local economy. We had dollar cabs. Dollar cabs were fucking illegal as shit. They were cabs that used to, you know, put 4 or 5 people in. They charge you $1 each. Right there. Lucy's were a fucking godsend. And you go along a bus line. They're still putting money back into the fucking neighborhood with gas. They're out on the road all day. They're gonna eat from the hood. When you take people like this out, it's more than just killing a black man. It's literally killing a patron of a black-owned business. It's taking food out of another child's mouth. And why? You want to sit here and say, well, he was doing something illegal when they're literally in a system that they have no other fucking choice to. You have no other fucking choice.
And then what happens? You can't, like, and then what happens? If you don't get murdered outright, you get rounded up, and then you're a fucking slave to the system, and not a dime of that's going back to your family. Yeah. Your family then has to blame you for getting caught.
Let me tell y'all what New York State does. New York State has a brand called Corecraft. Corecraft is every pen, every bar of soap, every towel used in the prison justice system. You know who it's made by? Fucking inmates. Inmates. Every state thing, every state pen, every state bar of soap, everything, every piece of paper in New York State is designed by Courtcraft. They're slaves. They're made by fucking slaves.
Yeah, and Republicans, all the law and order platforming, that's what they're fucking pushing, guys. That's what they're fucking pushing. They are pushing to put more fucking POCs in goddamn prison. When they say hoodlums, when they say thugs, tell me, guys, when you hear the word thug, what the fuck pops up in your head? You want to tell me that's not a racial fucking term? Tell me the last time that person that popped up in your head had skin like Jen's. Be completely fucking honest.
Yeah, when I turn around and tell y'all, stop and frisk, who do you think is going to jail? Did you think it would be me? Did you think I would be the one that was doing the shit back then and be the one that was getting locked up? Did you think it was me? No. Those cops didn't fucking think so either. And I'll tell you right now, 2 of the cops that pulled us over were fucking black. When I turn around and I tell you guys, I'm looking for a house, but I want it to be in a neighborhood with good schools. What color are the children in that school, do you think, that I'm referencing? What color of what kids come in your mind when I say I'm looking for a good school for my son?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that. How many black children are in that school in your mind?
And because we were dealing with the racism in the chat earlier, we didn't get a chance to talk about redlining. We'll probably talk about it on a future video, honestly, because that's something that not a lot of people like thinking about. But history doesn't go away in a generation or 2 or 3. And because laws are equal on paper doesn't necessarily fucking mean that they're equal in enforcement. It doesn't mean that those generations of disadvantage don't fucking carry their toll. So, in conclusion, there's no such thing as justice in fucking America. Even our Constitution itself has slavery still built in as legal in the very amendment that claimed to abolish it.
Yeah. 13th Amendment. I got a little homework for y'all to do tonight. I want y'all to go read the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. I want you to read all 3. And I want you to take, and this is where the hard part's going to come in. I want you to take the hero worship that you were told of your heroes, of Abraham Lincoln and the Congress at that time in the Civil War, and I want you to take that hero worship out. And I want you to read those amendments again. And I want you to sit here and tell me what you think of them now, had you not been told the story of the Civil War and why those amendments came to be.
And for those of you who are here live or not, if you're not here live and you made it all the way to the end, first off, thank you.
Yeah, especially through my crazy shit.
Even if y'all are still in the, even if y'all are in the live chat, leave something in the comments, not just to help out with the algorithm, because again, this shit's gonna get repressed. I can guarantee you, we've been talking about some heavy fucking shit. It's gonna go through and it's gonna be like, this ain't monetized, and if it ain't monetized, the only reason I'm leaving monetization on is because if I don't, the algorithm's gonna suppress it. You turn monetization off of the video, the algorithm don't give a fuck.
I've actually spoken on this publicly, both on my channel and I've done talks about it. If you want to cite me as a source, hit me up on Discord, hit me up on fucking Twitter. You're more than welcome to. You are absolutely more than fucking welcome to. This is something I have been speaking on for 25 years now.
Well, and if you want to cite this video as a source, there are actually websites. You can Google MLA citation of a YouTube video. There actually are citation guidelines. I believe since it's a live stream, you have to you have to note the time down now that you were watching it, because it's access dates and stuff, because people can edit videos. But yeah, if you want to cite a YouTube video and a paper, you can.
I'll wait till this shit is processed, download it, and send it to her. Boom.
But yeah, if you want to cite this video or one of Jen's or one of mine as a source for literally anything, which if you're doing a paper on discrimination, feel free to go check out the Folkism video, because I talk a lot about discrimination and freaking eugenics. But if you want to cite this one or Jen's stuff, which Jen talks about racism a lot on her channel, go check her shit out. Her link is in the description always. She just rebranded from Atheist Wind Down to just the Wind Down, which was an awesome move on her part, I think. So if y'all are looking for stuff, if you want to cite it, there's actually MLA and I believe APA citations for a YouTube video. It's very similar to that for access content. I think the only difference is that it asks what the name of the person is. If you're looking for that, cite my author name, Ashley Gouch. Cite Jen as Jen Aldridge.
Yep. And yeah, I'll send you the goddamn video if you need me to. Shit. I'll send you my shit. I'll send you the shit I've written on it. You need it, I got you.
So you touched a bit on what you were going to be doing this week.
Yeah, I keep trying to get this David Silverman video out, but Trump's gonna Trump.
Mm-hmm.
He makes, mind you, I'm a single mother, and Trump fucks up my schedule more than my kid does. Like, it's fucking ridiculous at this point. So, yes, now I'm going to be doing, I swear I'm going to, but David Silverman's going to David Silverman too, and the longer I wait, the more he's just going to dig his fucking grave. So, I'm going to be releasing a video on what should happen if Trump dies in office, not only for the office of the presidency, but what happens during the nomination process and the election, because I see a lot of people have been really confused about it. So I want to kind of break it down for everyone in a super simple way that can access it, and in case anything does happen, or if it does happen in the future, boom, y'all got it there. But I'm also going to discuss the direction of the Republican Party in should this happen, and how the Republican Party may try to reclaim itself and bank on this opportunity. I'm not going to sit here in conspiracy theory and say I think the Republican Party is trying to kill Donald Trump, although I think they will leave him to die to reclaim their party. So I will get more into why this would be such a big deal and what the future ahead of us should hold. Not this Friday coming up, the Friday after that, I'm going to have Matt Dillahunty on my show. And we're going to talk about sex.
Dilla Daddy.
We're going to talk about sex, y'all. We're going to talk about sex as a social contract. We're going to talk about fetishes. We're going to talk about kink shaming. We're going to talk about all the ways that you should not be fucked up when it comes down to sex.
So, I want to make a note, by the way, for those of you who are longtime viewers, I shit talk Dilla Daddy's audience a lot. I have the utmost respect for Dillahunty as a person. I just think that his fan club is terrifying.
Yo, let me tell y'all, I have done shows with that fan club.
Me.
Fuck, yo, I've done shows with that fan club. But yeah, me and Matt Dillahunty, and not this Friday coming up, Friday after, we're going to talk about sex. I finally got Matt Dillahunty on my channel to talk about sex.
Yeah. And so this Thursday, I'm doing something special for October. I'm doing a series of quote-unquote spooky topics for Idol October, which comes from the word eidolon, which means shade or ghost. This week, I'm doing one on ancestor cults and burial rites in ancient Greece, and why it is actually justified not only within the culture, but within the religion of ancient Greece for you to offer to adopted parents or grandparents instead of your quote-unquote blood ancestors, which is one of those things that utterly debunks folkism. So, if you guys, at least within Hellenism, so if y'all are interested in that, I'm going to be putting that one out on Thursday, probably as part of the bar crawl. So, yeah. That'll probably be at somewhere close to 9 p.m. EST on Thursday. Also, for next week, let me check the calendar to see who we have on, because we have somebody scheduled for next week here on this show. Oh, Evans Murphy. Oh, wait, no, actually, next week's Mama Atheist. We got a good friend of ours, Mama Atheist, coming on. She's scientist.
I forgot. I have Mama Atheist coming on this Friday as well to talk about climate denial.
Well, y'all are going to a double dose of Mama Atheist.
Yep, you guys are going to get a double dose of Mama Atheist.
She wanted to talk about climate denial and scientism.
Yep, we're going to talk about that on my channel as well. And we're going to talk about, Mama Atheist is the climate denial person, but we're going to talk about science denial in general. We're going to talk about COVID denial. We're going to talk about kind of woo shit when it comes down to science denial, right down to the people that are like, you can only do this oil on this day because of the HARP weather system kind of shit. So I'm going to be having her on too as well.
All right, guys. So to close the show out, we've still got about 40 people watching. I asked that you guys stick around to the end. I'm going to pop both of us into the back room and give you guys another about a minute with the list. Please actually go through and take a look and see if you can look up a couple of those names. Here's a homework assignment. See if you find a name on there that you don't recognize on that list, and see if you can find any news articles or things from that time. Tell me about it down in the comments. Let me know what you learned. Like, we're talking about not the big names that we've been hearing about for the last year or two. I'm talking about somebody whose name on there you don't recognize. And let me know who it was, and let me know what you found.
Hit me up. Like, my messages are open on Twitter. The show page on Facebook is open.
Discord DMs for those of you that are in our Discord.
My shit is like open. I talk to like fucking everyone. So, hit me up.
All right, so I'm going to go pop us into the back for another moment of silence with the list. Please check that out. Let me know in the comments which one you found info for. I know that that's homework. I know you'll have to remember to come back to a YouTube video, but you know what?
You homework tonight.
You wanna talk
I
about
mean,
what you can do as an ally? Educate yourself.
I've been
That's
doing
one
this
of the things
virtual
you can
school too
do.
much of my kid. Now everyone gets homework.
All right, so we're gonna drop down. I'm gonna leave it up for another minute or so, and then we will go out. And remember, guys, we're stronger together.